"I love my wife more than anything. She is very, very pretty. I love her." Those were the words of a young, smiling Caleb Flynn on a 2013 episode of American Idol. With a guitar in his hand and a charm that radiated small-town Christian values, he wasn't just auditioning for a singing competition. He was presenting the world with a vision of a perfect American life. But 11 years later, on a freezing February morning in Ohio, that same voice would be heard on a 911 line, breathless and hysterical, describing a scene so violent it shattered the peace of a quiet cul-de-sac. The mask of the idol was about to slip, revealing a reality that no one in Tipp City was prepared to face. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. Tipp City is the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked, or at least they used to. On February 16th, at approximately 2:30 a.m., the silence of a well-manicured neighborhood was broken. When police arrived at the Flynn residence, they didn't find a broken window or a getaway car speeding into the night. They found Caleb Flynn. To the neighbors, he was the former pastor and the devoted father. To the officers, he was a man in the middle of a nightmare. Caleb's story was immediate. A burglar had breached the sanctuary of their home. He pointed toward the garage, claiming the intruder had come through the side door. Inside the master bedroom, the heart of the home, lay Ashley Flynn. At 37, Ashley was the pulse of her community. A 7th grade volleyball coach, a beloved teacher, and a woman whose faith was her compass. But as she lay on her bed, the light she brought to the world had been extinguished by 2 precise gunshots to the head. The initial response was one of pure communal grief. In the first 72 hours, the narrative was clear: a burglary gone wrong. The local police chief even used those exact words. A GoFundMe was launched, featuring a photo of the perfect family: Caleb, Ashley, and their 2 young daughters. Within days, over $115,000 was raised. The town mourned a teacher. They rallied around a widower. But while the public was praying, the detectives were measuring. As investigators walked through the home, the burglary theory began to feel like a house of cards. They looked at the side door Caleb pointed to. There was a large refrigerator positioned directly in front of it. For a burglar to enter, they would have had to shove a heavy, humming appliance across the floor, hardly the move of a stealthy intruder. Then there was the weapon. Caleb mentioned his 9mm handgun was kept in the center console of his Ford truck in the garage. When police looked, the console was open. The gun was missing, but the biggest red flag wasn't a piece of furniture or a missing gun. It was something Caleb said on the 911 call. A detail so specific it seemed impossible for a man who claimed to have just discovered his wife's body in the dark. As the dispatcher tried to calm Caleb down, he made a statement about the nature of Ashley's wounds that sent a chill down the investigators' spines. It was a detail that only 2 people could have known: the person who found her and the person who pulled the trigger. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. When the 911 audio was later analyzed, one phrase stood out above the sobbing: "My wife is... she's got 2 shots to her head." To the average listener, it sounds like a report of a tragedy. To a seasoned detective, it sounds like a confession. In a dark room with blood everywhere, how did Caleb know, before the lights were even fully up, exactly how many times she had been hit, and exactly where? Detective David Sarney, a veteran investigator, noted that even in high-stress situations, people rarely count entry wounds correctly in the dark. Caleb wasn't just hysterical. He was providing a forensic report. This prompted the FBI to join the Tipp City police. The focus shifted from a random predator to the man who was currently being hailed as a grieving martyr. The investigation turned toward the physical evidence within the master bedroom. 2 shell casings were found on the floor. The trajectory of the bullets didn't suggest a panic struggle with a burglar. They suggested an execution while Ashley was likely asleep or incapacitated. Even more baffling was the status of the couple's 2 elementary school-aged daughters. Both girls had slept through the entire incident. 2 9mm rounds are deafening in a quiet house at 2:30 a.m., yet the children never stirred. As police interviewed neighbors, the quiet neighborhood factor worked against Caleb. In a cul-de-sac, sounds carry. No one reported hearing a car door slam or a stranger running through the yards. The only activity was the arrival of the police. Police then turned their attention to the digital footprint of the Flynn household. In the age of smart homes and constant connectivity, accidental burials of the truth are harder to maintain. They began scrubbing Caleb's cell phone records, looking for anything that contradicted his story of being a soundly sleeping husband. What they found wasn't just a list of calls. It was a timeline of a man who may have been living a double life. While the town was preparing a massive public memorial at the church where the Flynns once served on staff, the FBI's forensic team finished their preliminary sweep of Caleb's digital life. They discovered that in the weeks leading up to the murder, Caleb wasn't just a devoted husband and pastor. He was a man searching for an exit, and he had already found someone to help him through the door. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. The image of the American Idol pastor was officially dead. Investigators began to peel back the layers of the Flynn marriage, finding a domestic reality that stood in stark contrast to Caleb's public declarations of love. While Ashley was dedicated to her volleyball team and her students, Caleb's interests had shifted elsewhere. Sources close to the investigation began to whisper about a motive as old as time. Allegations surfaced of an extramarital affair, a secret relationship that Caleb was allegedly desperate to protect. This wasn't just a burglary gone wrong. It was looking more like a fresh start gone violent. If Ashley had discovered the infidelity, or if Caleb felt trapped by his reputation as a religious leader, the perfect life he built became a cage. The forensic evidence continued to pile up. Police focused on the staged elements of the crime scene. The open center console in the truck, the pushed refrigerator, the open garage door. All of it felt like a theatrical production designed by someone who knew what a crime scene should look like, but didn't understand how a real criminal operates. A real burglar doesn't typically move a refrigerator to get into a house, nor do they steal a specific gun from a truck and use it only on one person in the master bedroom while leaving valuables behind. The pressure began to mount. On Wednesday, just 2 days after the murder, the police chief made a public pivot that stunned the community. He announced that the murder was targeted and that the public was not in danger. The subtext was clear. The killer was already known. Ashley's family, who had been silent in their grief, began to receive briefings from the FBI. Their reaction was telling. They didn't come to Caleb's defense. Instead, they requested that the public memorial service be canceled. The church, once the center of Caleb's social and professional world, shut its doors to him. The GoFundMe header was changed. Caleb's face was cropped out, leaving only the image of Ashley. On February 19th, exactly 3 days after the 911 call, police invited Caleb down to the station for what he likely thought was a follow-up interview. But when he walked into the room, he wasn't met with sympathy. He was met with a pair of handcuffs and a list of charges that included felony murder and tampering with evidence. As he stood before the judge, the man who once sang for millions had only one thing to say, and it wasn't a plea for his wife's justice. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. Sir, I just want to take care of my daughters. I'm not at risk. Those were Caleb Flynn's words in court, tears streaming down his face. It was a final attempt at the devoted father persona, but the judge wasn't moved. Bond was set at $2 million cash. The conditions were even harsher. If he somehow stayed out of jail, he was barred from any contact with his children. The two girls were already being shielded by Ashley's family, who released a shattering statement. "Our hearts are shattered," the family wrote. "Ashley brought endless light. Our family believes this arrest was made carefully and not without serious consideration." This was the final nail in the coffin of Caleb's public defense. Even those who knew him best through Ashley trusted the police more than they trusted him. The legal battle began to take shape. Caleb's attorney immediately went on the offensive, echoing the famous defense of Scott Peterson. He claimed a rush to judgment and argued that because the police couldn't find the real burglar, they simply chose the easiest target, the surviving spouse. He pointed to the initial police reports of forced entry as proof that his client was being scapegoated. But the prosecution's hand was strong. They had the 911 call with the 2 shots slip up. They had the forensic impossibility of the refrigerator block door. They had the missing gun from Caleb's own truck. And they had the alleged motive of a man wanting to shed his old life for a new one without losing his reputation or his assets. The tragedy of Ashley Flynn isn't just in her death, but in the betrayal of the life she lived. She was a woman who clung to her faith, as her family said, only to allegedly be betrayed by a man who used that same faith as a platform for his own ego. The $115,000 raised for the girls remains a testament to her impact, now serving as a legacy for two children who lost their mother to violence and their father to the justice system. Caleb Flynn entered a plea of not guilty. He looks forward to his day in court, clinging to the hope that a jury will believe the story of the burglary gone bad. But as the evidence is laid bare, the story of the American Idol pastor serves as a grim reminder. The most dangerous monsters aren't the ones who break into our homes in the middle of the night. They are often the ones we let in through the front door. As the trial date approaches, Tipp City remains a town transformed. Ashley's volleyball team plays in her honor, and her students remember a woman who gave everything to her community. The case of the Flynn family is no longer a story about a burglary. It is a search for the truth behind a perfect marriage that ended in the dark. And as always, you've been watching True Crime Story Vault, where every story is told with facts, empathy, and respect for those who can no longer speak for themselves. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button, like, and comment your thoughts below. Until next time, remember, the truth is never buried.